Hello.
Our story begins in the twilight of the Republic. The legendary Beacon of Hope was destroyed, crashing down into a fire blaze on the planet of Iram. In the destruction of the Starlight Beacon, Nihil leader Marchion Ro publicly celebrated the failure of the Republic and the Jedi. Following the fall of a Glimmer of Hope, the Jedi followed their Grey Master in a great callback from their exploration of the galaxy. In the eyes of Yoda and his council, the galaxy had become too unapproachable for the Jedi Order. With Master Stellan Gios falling victim in the destruction of Starlight Beacon, it was clear to Yoda that the Order had gone far enough. It would be best to protect the interests of the Jedi Order at home. For those on Iram that lost their friends, especially the likes of Avar Kriss, Elzar Mann, Renestra Rao, and Bel Zettifar, it was a disappointing reality of their Jedi Order, and a future that they wouldn't live to see the fall of. As these Jedi pulled away from Iram to regroup with their brothers and sisters currently reeling from the atrocious loss of life, Jedi explorers on the outskirts of the galaxy were trying to hone in on the ramparts of a potential Republic defense. In the golden era of the Republic, Jedi explored the stars, trying to aid in the growth and range of influence under the protection of the Republic and its Chancellor. While Chancellor Lina So wasn't personally involved in the exploration of systems such as Tanalorr, she was aware that the Jedi, prior to Starlight, were searching the stars. Master Centauri Kree and her friend Dagan Gera were two of these Jedi. They were on a heavily force-attuned planet called Tanalorr. Gera believed that this system would make a fine bastion for the Republic and Jedi lines. His close friend Master Kree understood these desires, but when the order came in for the Jedi to relocate back to Coruscant, she knew it was time for them to go. The motivations were positive, and the potential outcomes were prosperous, but with a Nihil attack on the Tanalorr system, accompanying the rise of their evil regime, it was clear the golden age of the Jedi was at an end. Gera personally couldn't live with the idea of allowing the Jedi Order to submit to these pirates. The Nihil themselves weren't anything more than a unified group of anarchists. Sure, they were ruled by the great Marchion Ro, but his leadership was superficial in the eyes of Dagan. Yeah, he had been successful. The attack at the Republic Fair and the fall of Starlight Beacon were truly accomplishments, but the Jedi couldn't back down. Their failure to stand tall in the face of adversity would lead to unforeseen troubles. The Sith could be gone and extinct, but this type of behavior is what breeds their kind. Ancient religions weren't a match for the Sith or Jedi, but something evil could brew in the absence of care. When people look the other way to ignore a problem, it only festers until it becomes unconquerable. Dagan told Centauri that if they really wanted to be Jedi, then they shouldn't listen to their Grand Masters. She turned over and asked what he meant. Gera told her that as a Jedi their duty was to defend the people of the galaxy. He understood why they retreated from the Nihil invasion at Tanalorr, but if they didn't secure it, what good would it be to them? If they backed away, how long until Marchion Ro vanished from the winds of time? Gera acknowledged that the Nihil might not be eternal, but why wait a generation or two or three to let them die out? She agreed, but without the backing of the Council, they wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. Master Kree was well aware that Gera wanted to build a Jedi temple and fortress on the planet of Tanalorr, believing that his high sensitivity to the Force would give the Jedi the perfect means to train and defend the Outer Rim, as referred to earlier, a bastion. Gera told her that she could use her contacts to get some support. Maybe Jedi Master Stellan Gios could support her. She was optimistic. But being that Starlight fell, she now wondered if he survived the attack on the station. Master Kree knew her friend well. Gera's impatience and lack of humility would drive him from the Jedi Order if she didn't at least try. Centauri was already iffy about the whole thing. Considering the fact that they were here with Master Rancisis, then abandoned the planet with him and the other Jedi during the Nihil invasion, and then somehow her friend convinced her to come back, she might as well try. It was clear the only reason the Nihil ever came to this planet was because they didn't want the Jedi or the Republic this close to their territory. If he could convince her to come back to Tanalorr, then surely she could try and convince someone else. She promised him that after they investigated the area, she'd call Coruscant to see who she could get in touch with. Master Avar Kriss and her Jedi made their way reluctantly back to Coruscant. Elzar, Bel, Vernestra, and a couple others were all disheartened by the fall of Starlight Beacon. Perhaps the hardest and most challenging aspect of this, aside from losing their close friend, Stellan, was the look on Vernestra's face. She was the star student, Master Stellan Gios' student actually, as well as the first Jedi Padawan to become a Jedi Knight at 15 in centuries. Her eyes were covered in nothing but sadness. Avar remembered seeing Vernestra, full of optimism and excitement. Now there was a downtrodden expression radiating off of her. Yes, her master was gone, but there was something more. Like Vernestra was watching their golden order stumble to its knees. Vernestra was a Jedi who wielded a purple lightsaber, one that could be used as a light whip. At 18, Vernestra's world was crumbling around her. So Avar looked back to the light rays of hyperspace as her vessel dropped out into the orbit of Coruscant. Home sweet home never felt so bitter, as they transported themselves down to the surface. As they landed at the Jedi Temple, she watched her close friends and allies walk from the ship they arrived in. She walked back over to Vernestra and asked how she was handling everything. The young Jedi looked up with almost a blank expression. As a Mirilan, it wasn't always easy to convey emotions. Their species, especially as Jedi, were known to be priests and priestesses of the Jedi Order. Future individuals like Luminara Unduli, Master Katri, and Barriss Offee were of her species. Vernestra told Avar that the Force didn't feel right. Not that her master was gone or that it made it any easier, but it felt like they were giving up. Master Yoda told the Jedi to return to Coruscant. She asked Avar if that felt like running to her. The former Marshal of Starlight Beacon sat down and told her that it wouldn't feel right. Not only that, but it shouldn't. As Jedi from a young age, they're taught to be selfless, to serve others, but what they've encountered was unlike anything else from their golden era. There were always missions in which there were chances to die, and ones where they might have to challenge their own view of the code. But this was a war. This was a conflict with a foe that was more organized than both the Jedi and the Republic could have imagined. She told Vernestra that it doesn't feel right because they were doing everything the Jedi shouldn't be doing. And maybe it was going too far to say this, but perhaps their trust in their Jedi Council should be shaken. Prater Viter, Jo LaRue, and Yoda were all elders that they trusted. Their combined ages exceeded 1,000 years, and maybe it was time they should consider changing their morals. Vern looked to the known dogmatic Jedi Master as she wondered if she would fare the same fate. As a Mirilan, she would live for at least a century, if not more. She could become this, and she was seeing in this moment that perhaps she should take mental notes. Avar could see the wheels churning in the young Jedi's mind. She took a deep breath and looked out at the other Jedi who were walking into the temple. She turned back and told Vernestra that a Jedi's strength must exceed that of their fallacies. They had truly set the darkness free. As they sat in silence, Avar's communication device rang, and she looked down, excusing herself from Vernestra and walking to the ramp of the ship. Master Kree asked Master Chris how she was doing, and she told her that she was doing as well as she could do. Avar asked what her reason for calling was. Centauri informed her that she was going to try and get into contact with Master Geos, to which she would learn of a saddening truth, one that informed her that Stellan had died instead of Starlight. It was hard news to hear, but Master Kree was quick on her feet. She informed Avar that Dag and Gera brought her back to Tanalorr. Before going further, she expressed that she knew it was something she wasn't supposed to do. Centauri continued telling Avar that the Nihil had since cleared out. She said that perhaps there was a chance that they could make a move against them, or at least do something. Avar asked where this was coming from. While her own faith had been shaken, she could tell that there was something getting Centauri to speak against the law, in a way. Master Kree expressed that Dagon had somewhat delusions of grandeur, and despite those being semi-delusional, there was some truth in the matter. The truth being that the Nihil might vanish after Marchion Ro, but why risk it? If they wanted to be Jedi, then why allow a generation to suffer because of it? Avar stiffened her voice, and then asked what they were suggesting. Initially, because she was trying to contact Stellan, she wanted to know if they could set up a base of operations on the planet of Tanalorr. Without the approval of the Council, this would be difficult. Avar asked Centauri how long she planned on being on the planet for, and she shrugged, suggesting she'd probably be here for a couple more hours. Avar told her that she would speak to an ally about it and get back to her. As the communication ended, Vernestra walked out and asked who it was. Avar told her about it as they walked into the temple. Master Avar was looking for an elder ally, one who was over 130 years old, probably even older. They went into the archives to find Master Porter Engel. By the time they got to him, Avar had explained everything she could to Vern, and they spoke about their personal feelings on the matter. Master Engel was sitting in the archives with a tablet. He was reading through some more mundane lessons from Master Yaddle. He found them exquisite and full of life. He believed that she'd make a fine council member one day, surprised that she hadn't yet joined their ranks. Perhaps in Stellan's absence, she would become a replacement. When Avar got there, he looked up from his tablet and stood to his feet, bowing and asking that they take a seat with him. He asked what it was that they would like to talk about, and Avar got straight to the point. She and Porter were very similar, tight to the code, and as some might say, dogmatic in the very sense of their loyalties. She told Porter about the conversation she had with Master Kree. Not everything, just to keep her name safe and a couple other details out, but she wanted his opinion. If they should indeed consider setting up a forward operations post in the Outer Rim. Tanalorr could be the perfect place to do it, and Master Engel cut her off. He told Avar that wherever these ideas were coming from, they needed to go. She was out of her mind if she thought the Council would stand for this. They might even strike her master ranking just in spite of the idea. Perhaps he was being a bit too facetious, but he got his point across. Vernestra spoke up, telling Master Porter that the people of the galaxy needed hope. They all saw Starlight fall. They all heard Marchion Ro's claim of victory, and then they watched both the Republic and Jedi cower back into the core. How was that fair? It wasn't. He saw her point, but this was the law. The Council had spoken. He turned to Vernestra and told her that all her accomplishments were remarkable, but it was time to put childhood aspirations to rest. This was a war the Jedi did not need to cultivate. Their place was here with the Republic. Avar stood up and bowed before walking away. Vernestra didn't even bow, she just followed. Master Porter shook his head and returned to reading. Vern asked Master Chris what she was going to do, and Avar smiled, telling her that they were going to make the right of a bad situation. The next question was, how? And Avar was still trying to figure that out. Inside the Jedi Council chambers, 3 Grand Masters of the era, Prativiter, Jo LaRue, and Yoda spoke amongst their peers of the Jedi, including Master Shine, Mirag, Caro, Rasasan, Rancesis, Adapo, Poof, and Agra. The death of Master Stellan Geos was a devastating loss for the Jedi Council, but the loss of Starlight was a sign that it was time to stop chasing the adventure of exploration. It was time to settle, to strengthen their resolve and claim their home here on Coruscant. This was met with total agreement from the Masters of the High Council. After hours of negotiating with their closest allies and friends, Avar was able to assemble a team of Jedi to go to Tanalorr. These Jedi were Elzar Mann, Belzetifar, and Vernestra Ro. It may have been a small squad, but they could unite with Master Kree and Dagan on Tanalorr. They departed at night after informing the 2 Jedi on Tanalorr that they'd be coming. When they eventually arrived on the system, they found the abundance of the Force to be intoxicating. It was a remarkable thing. The planet was so rich with life and power that it almost felt like the Jedi needed to be here. Though there remained the question, how were 6 Jedi going to stop something that had been unstoppable for the last 2 years? Dagan's idea was to build a temple, but that wasn't feasible, so they decided on a forward command post. It was something they could all agree on, and it would gift them the ability to have a home away from home. Master Kree had an idea though. She would like to bring more allies out here to support them. Avar believed she was right, and that it was a good idea. So in an effort to keep up morale, Centauri left to recruit more allies. The other 5 Jedi would spend the time they had to build a medical bay, a meditation chamber, a sleeping quarters, and a training room. It was all built into a mountain range, and done so to make sure that it was safe from the Nihil. For the time being, it would be the perfect way to keep their little operation secretive. With Master Kree so far away, they began running missions in the Nihil territory, or in other words, the Outer Rim. Their missions were very undercover. Due to them not wearing their temple robes, they could blend in a lot more. The Jedi of the Golden Era wore glistening and golden robes when at home, and more grounded in natural colors when away. These Jedi were working actively to try and find this leader of the Nihil. Once he was gone, all hell would break loose. They were anarchists after all, though the concern was what would happen when they were vanquished. Avar often wondered because there were criminal empires in the Outer Rim. They were just minuscule. Her short-term alliance with the Hutt named Myagra, the Benevolent, 2 years before was beneficial, but once the Nihil were gone, Myagra and her kind would be left to take control of the Outer Rim. The Jedi could not allow that to happen. This small unit of Jedi became extremely tight. They were a family. These recon missions were just that, undercover assignments made on their own, though as the days went by, they knew they would attract the attention of the High Council, especially with Master Kree bringing a number of Jedi to Tanalorr, these including the likes of Master Yaddle, Master Miro Lox, and Miro's student, Amado Azazo. They were among 20 Jedi that came to join this effort to find Marchion Ro. The following year and a half would be full of ups and downs, though the greatest up was the approval of the Jedi High Council. In all fairness, the Council didn't really approve, but they officially did, quietly. It was convoluted, but they found out because of Master Porter Engel. He learned of the little thing on Tanalorr and exposed it to Master Yarael Proof, who snitched and informed the Council. They sent for Avar Kriss, considering she was technically the highest ranked individual on Tanalorr. She informed them of their status and their mission statement. The Council almost struck down her role as a master. However, it was because of Master Kriss that they accepted these terms, though they did change some things up on her. No other Jedi would be permitted to go into the Outer Rim until they settled the issue with Marchion Ro. They would provide care if needed, but they were not to go any further than taking out the Nihil leader, Kriss understood. Because Avar Kriss was a staunch supporter of the Jedi Code, and very much so what the Council liked in a Jedi, they were willing to support this. She was Marshal of Starlight Beacon. She could handle it. They didn't agree with everything, but the fact that she was adamant to serve meant that they were willing to let things play out. The Jedi in the Outer Rim were overly pleased with the acceptance of the Council, but it did not change their mission statement. With the Jedi in such uncharted territory, it helped them feel like there was some sort of support behind them. The base on Tanalorr was really the key to Jedi success. The more they built off the land, the more entangled they became with the wonders of the Force. Secrets lost even during their Golden Age, understanding long-forgotten secrets under the foolishness of complacency. These Jedi worked as hard as they could for a year and a half until they found where Marchion Ro was, which was on Hetzal Prime. The reason it took so long is Marchion was informed early on that the Jedi were still in the Outer Rim, operating from an unknown location. In an effort to beat them at their own game, he left breadcrumbs on planets he didn't stay on, just to put Jedi into unfavorable positions, though the Jedi found his location before he found theirs. The issue is, Marchion and the Nihil already captured Tanalorr. They just never set up a patrol or anything on the planet, so the planet was marked off on their radar as captured territory, which in a way was a stroke of brilliance made by Dag and Gara. Regardless, a raiding party was prepared. Master Avar Kriss assembled the best squad of Jedi for the mission as she could, and the others were left to inform the Council that their operation was underway. Elzar Mann, Bel Zettifar and his Charhound Ember, Vernestra Ro, Dagan Gera, Centauri Kree, and Mira Lox. This group of Jedi were dispatched to Hetzal Prime to take down Marchion Ro. The cynical leader of the Nihil didn't know they were coming, but he was prepared. On the anniversary of the destruction of Starlight about 6 months before, his men intercepted a hologram transmission from Grandmaster Prativiter. He was on a location referred to as Planet X, and he was executed in front of everyone watching by a creature referred to as the Nameless. These creatures did something to Force sensitives that it didn't do to regular people. By Force sensitives, this more or less is individuals like Jedi, people with high M counts and a lot of nutrients to feed off of. Marchion had 3 of these beasts brought to Hetzal Prime. They were trained to the best of their abilities to not eat their handlers, nor their master. Due to a task run by an astromech in a Jedi Vector starfighter, the Jedi didn't enter through hyperspace. Thanks to Marchion Ro, he implemented something called a storm wall, which used storm seeds as a means to prevent communication and hyperspace travel. He used this all around the Oculation Zone, in other words, Nihil territory. The Jedi jumped out of hyperspace right outside the storm wall and flew past the storm seeds to enter Nihil territory. They were able to use the hyperspace lanes inside the territory to sneak their way to Hetzal Prime. They arrived and landed at dusk. This planet was the site of the Great Hyperspace Disaster, and now it was clinging onto life under the jurisdiction of this band of marauders. Truly horrific. Once the Jedi were on the surface, they moved through an open landscape before finding an area filled with boulders and using it as cover. They were unfamiliar with the layout of the base, because until figuring out where it was, they knew nothing. Avar led her Jedi forward, keeping low to the ground and coming out to see a massive fortress. Elzar looked at it and then told her that he could see a group of guards moving from the far entrance. Bel came up from the other side and asked how they could approach this. Dagan from behind suggested slingshotting each other into the base. That'd be fine if they knew it was on the other side. Avar suggested that they go around. Bel called to his Charhound Ember and sent her out. Luckily, this would be a good way to see what was going on. Bel attached a small camera to her and she moved quickly. The Jedi ducked back into cover as a small animal ran around the base, avoiding detection in the dark land surrounding the base. They could see a clear line of entry, but the issue is, the camp where the boss was had to be in the back. The biggest tent was back there, so naturally it must be Marchion. Ember eventually came back and Bel took the camera off of her, and the Jedi moved out. Bell sent Ember back to the ship. The squad of 7 Jedi ran quickly around to the front, narrowly avoiding detection as they watched and timed everything up. Once they got everything set, they moved in, skipping past the front gate where the sentry was asleep, with a light sensor that would turn on the alarms if it caught something moving. The Jedi slipped to each side of the base, splitting up into groups of 4, Avar leading one, Elzar leading the other. The Jedi quickly moved into the camp, avoiding running into guards and using the Force on others to subdue them. It was a very stealthy mission until they came around to the tent of the Nihil leader. His tent door was open and they snuck in through the front. Most of the camp was asleep, so they avoided detection pretty easily. When they entered, Marchion was speaking to himself. He was talking about the future expansion of his empire. He could swallow the Syndicates whole if he wanted, at least in his mind, but he needed something else. These conversations weren't uncommon for him to have with himself. As the Jedi walked in, he could hear their footsteps and he turned around as they readied themselves, though not igniting their weapons. Marchion smiled under his helmet and welcomed his guests. He told them that their order was wise to retreat back to Coruscant. They'd never survived the hostility of the Outer Rim. They weren't built for such troubles. He turned back and asked if they were here to bring him to justice. 7 lightsabers ignited and he mumbled under his breath, questioning with a "no?" before telling them that that was a shame. He let out a whistle, and from inside the tent rose 3 nameless creatures. The Jedi all became confused as Marchion turned back, telling them that these were the same beasts that killed their Grand Master. Yes, the Shrikarai were irritable little animals with an incurable hunger for the Force, and while every creature had it, nothing was like the Force the Jedi had. The Nameless created hallucinations and disconnect from the Force for the Jedi. Each of them staggered from their footing as Marchion stood with pride. He told them that there was a group called the Path of the Open Hand, which domesticated these beasts. He figured, after watching that fool Prativiter fall victim to them, that he should get his own. Marchion grabbed a spear from the ground and picked it up, shrugging his shoulders and telling the Jedi that it was perhaps the best decision he ever made. The Jedi reeled in pain as he picked out the lead, asking her if she would like the honor of watching her precious Jedi friends die. Marchion walked around, holding a spear to Bell's neck, then moving to Vernestra, laughing as he did. Mira was in the back as he tried to break free from the grip of the Nameless. Marchion walked back towards Avar and spoke to her, telling her that she could make the first pick as he dragged her back around to face her friends. Marchion was so focused on getting this reaction that he missed Mira standing up in the back, resisting the strength of the Nameless as he used the Force to shatter one of the beast's vertebrae. The snap caught Marchion's attention as he readied his spear and launched it across the room, catching Mira in the stomach. His Force powers were very weak, and he wasn't even looking at the Nihil leader when it happened. Centauri got to her feet and kicked one of the animals in the face, as the Jedi started to feed off the distraction, some grabbing their lightsabers as others went for the Nameless. The main reason Miro could break free was because the Nameless were 3 focusing on 7. They could only do so much. Avar's lightsaber ignited as she ripped upwards, cutting Marchion's arm off before falling backwards when a Nameless pounced on her. The commotion drew the attention from some more Nihil guardsmen on duty, but it wasn't enough to get the entire attention of the camp. Elzar used his lightsaber to decapitate a Nameless beast before he used the Force, what little energy he could muster, to force the guardsmen on the ground that came in. Dagan leapt at Marchion, who was falling backwards due to losing his arm. Instead of hitting the leader, he fell beneath the feet of one of the Nameless beasts. Their massive paw slammed onto his chest as he wheezed. Avar moved in, but the animal returned to his action by harvesting off of her Force powers as she dropped to the ground before striking the animal down. Vernestra activated her light whip and struck the guardsman entering the tent, using the distance the weapon gave her to her advantage, as Centauri ran over to Miro's side, making sure he would survive. The Jedi Master coughed in pain as Bell attacked another one of the guards, thanks to Elzar's quick actions. Dagan, who was still under the paw of the beast, reached for his lightsaber, his fingertips just touching it as Avar tried to force herself to kill the animal, but she was being weakened. Marchion grabbed the pistol and shot Dagan's hand as he winced in pain. Centauri heard Dagan whelp and she turned back, laying Miro, who had passed on, back onto the ground, and rushing Marchion. The Nihil leader fired at her as she blocked the shots and leapt across the room. As she got there, she swung, and he ducked, dropping his pistols and using an electronic staff and shoving it into her chest. Behind her, a couple blaster shots rang out, and they went straight through her back, killing her immediately. Bell was moving to intercept these guards, but he got there too late, cutting them down as his friend was killed. Elzar and Avar cut down the last Nameless beast, and helped Dagon off the ground. Vernestra was still holding off the guards at the end of the tent while Bell helped her out. Marchion took this opportunity to lunge out of the tent, ripping a hole in the side. But Dagon, dipping into the darkness, used the Force to pull Marchion back into the tent as both Avar and Elzar swung their blades forward, killing him. Elzar helped Dagon off the ground as the Jedi regrouped at the mouth of the tent, fending off the attackers. The longer the Nameless were gone, the faster the Jedi powers returned to them. They were operating with only natural talent and trained reactions up until they got their powers back. The Jedi couldn't stop for their dead. They had to go. They made the ultimate sacrifice. Avar grabbed their lightsabers, believing that if they buried their crystals, their souls would find peace. Dagon grabbed the mask of Marchion Ro to prop up to the Republic as proof that they could win this fight. The camp slowly moved into high alert, and instead of fighting off all the Nihil, the Jedi used the back entrance, using the Force to leap the wall and run back to their ship. Having lost 2 of their Jedi, they'd have to make a quick escape. An escape they would. The Nihil would trail them, but it wouldn't ever help them stop the Jedi. Upon their return to Tanalorr, they would inform the Jedi Council of their victory and how the Nihil would become disorganized. This was their chance to win. The Council was genuinely surprised. Avar informed them that she would return to Coruscant with their squad to bury those who sacrificed their lives in the name of light and life. What followed the death of Marchion Ro could only be described as chaos. The Nihil turned on each other, and they moved to try and conquer other territory they didn't have the resources to conquer. And with the success of the mission on Hetzal Prime, the Jedi Council agreed to build a temple on Tanalorr, one that would have a unique gift over the temple on Coruscant. Due to the immense power of the Force on the planet of Tanalorr, the new temple had the ability to source darkness in the galaxy. Archivists from the Coruscant Temple used their knowledge to make this beacon shine, and it did. But it also located other ancient religions around the galaxy, ones that the Jedi could keep their eyes on. The Republic would react, and its Chancellor would choose to follow the model of the Jedi Order by not giving in and not giving up. They couldn't give the Nihil a chance to rise again. Those responsible for the first strike would be remembered for their sacrifices, but with all things, legacy is twisted into interpretation of stories passed on from generations before. As the Order and Republic began to move into the Outer Rim, they began conflict with a fractured system. Weak syndicates and a shattered Nihil gave room for the forces of good to establish their government in places of darkness. This would give hope to future generations of the Outer Rim. Thanks to the establishment of the temple on Tanalorr, Master Vernestra Ro would join Jedi of the future in the defeat of the Sith, one that had Masters Yoda, Yaddle, Yariel, and Oppa present for, a victory that would see the Sith religion extinguished for good, and in a future not seen by Vernestra, there'd be a lineage of Master Yoda, one full of Jedi that, like the heroes of Hetzal Prime, would do what was necessary to protect the galaxy, a lineage that started with Dooku, who trained Palpatine, who immediately after becoming a knight trained Qui-Gon, who trained Obi-Wan, of which trained Barriss Offee, and due to her knighthood early on, would train Ahsoka Tano, a legacy of Jedi that would never know the stresses of a Nihil, criminal syndicate, or Sith-filled galaxy, a legacy that, like those before them, could maintain the balance of the Force. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to our patrons: Benjamin Wells, M, Django Fett Clone, Nick 5098, IMTJ Recluse, Ben Ingram, The Big Red Pure Mark, Diamond Constant, Darth Nemesis, Lord Tibbs, CC2024, Galvin Gaming, Tristan Mandalore, Sir Realm 1767, Darth Revan, Granddaddy Ban, Laliant, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Rooney, Shark Midori, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlanger, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewu 670, Annika Stank Runner, CT7567, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Knox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tem, Johnny Naguin, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Cali, Galaxy 66, Man Studios, Anakin003, Lord Draken, Fortis Legacy Star Wars, Airbus, Rex the Wolf, The Man with the First Names, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button for more High Republic content. Let's talk about this story. I'm gonna be honest, I'm still getting into this, so if you're really big in the High Republic and I missed some things or got things wrong, that's on me. I'm still kind of learning the whole era, but this was a lot of fun. I always talk about how I love working with characters I don't usually get to work with, and this was definitely one of those stories that was a lot of fun. A completely different era with very few people that you know. Yaddle, Yariel, Oppo, and Yoda are like the main people that you might know. So it was really cool getting into this era and really kind of exploring different things. Like I said, I'm still getting into it. I'm still trying to learn more about it. I'm really only scratching the surface with this stuff, but I would really like to do more High Republic content. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, you know what to do. Anyways, I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.